Hello, everyone. I'm James Seuss. I'm CEO of the Rug Company and delighted to be with Leslie Chihuly today, the CEO of Chihuly, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Well, it's good to see you, James. We only seem to get to see each other virtually these days, but I look forward to raising a toast to you in this collaboration when we get a chance. But yes, I'm Leslie Chihuly. I'm the CEO of Chihuly Studio and Chihuly Workshop. It's really fun to be doing this with you today.
It's great. It's a great opportunity for us to hear about some of the inspiration for the collaboration and for us to talk about our 5 new exciting designs, one of which is behind me. So we'll get right into that. And I think, you know, everyone, when I talk about the collaboration with the Rug Company and Chihuly, everyone always is curious to know how it started and curious to know what attracted to you and Dale to the Rug Company and this particular medium of working in. So maybe we can start with that.
Sure. Well, from the personal introduction, it was our friend, mutual friend, Barbara Malone, who introduced James and myself in London, and we had a lovely lunch and we started talking about the possibility of doing something. And then I had an opportunity to go to a couple of the showrooms in London, and I was so impressed with the work that was being done, the craftsmanship, the quality, the intimacy of the way that the work was shown. And it gave me a lot of confidence in taking the idea to Dale, because frankly, the idea of doing rugs had come up in the past and he had always turned it down. But I think when he saw what you were doing and saw some of the other artists and designers involved, especially people like Paul Smith, who's a friend and who we admire, and we had in fact bought some of the pillows, you know, with his designs at one of his shops, you know, that you had done. So there were lots of nice connections there. But in terms of the further back connection to Dale and the idea of weaving in general is that Dale had studied interior architecture at the University of Washington in the 60s. And he studied under a very successful weaver and mentor named Hope Foote. So Dale did these very intricate weavings that we still have today. And he began melting little pieces of glass into those, weaving them into them. He was not a glassblower at the time. He didn't know about glass blowing. So it really started with interiors, weaving, furniture making, which he did some of, designing his mother's basement, etc. So to understand Dale's work and the scale that you see some of the pieces today, you have to go back to that intimacy of his interest in interiors, in architecture, in finishes, and beautiful objects. So I really think it's a very natural connection to think about the weaving and the weavers in Nepal and the kind of weaving Dale was doing when he was in his teens and early 20s at the University of Washington.
It was so inspiring for me to go. I was at the Baker Museum's your exhibition there last month in Naples, and it's the first time since I've seen the work since our collaboration has come together again, and it was so inspiring to see the way that the rugs were interpreted from the collections, and once you can see the two 3D versus the rug behind me, you really get a sense of how that came about, and I think it's so exciting. And starting with this rug, this is Harvest, part of the Cylinder series, and I think there was some good examples of this in Naples as well too, that resonated with this kind of design.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so impressed with the Baker Museum for being able to pull off this exhibition during COVID times. And I'm so happy that you lived there and you were able to see it. So it's going to be up until February 28th for anybody in Florida who still wants to have an opportunity to go see the work in the museum. They do a brilliant job at the museum, and we love Florida. We love that part of the world, and there's such an appreciation for art and good design and collecting. So yes, the Harvest piece behind you is a bit of an abstracted view of what Dale does on the glass, because every little piece that you see, every little dot and line was really a small thread of glass that was done in a drawing and was picked up on hot glass and then expanded. So we've worked for many years. Dale's worked with Flora Mace and Joey Kirkpatrick on the specific part of the thread drawings that you see on the carpet.
The some of the other pieces in the series, and those of you driving along I-95 next to the DCOTA will have seen Rosette, which is another very beautiful and iconic, based on an iconic design as well, right? And that's so eye-catching and appealing.
Yeah, I mean, the pieces that you see in the Rosette piece really are, Dale called them Persians, and I think it was the time when he started those back in the, late 70s, 80s. He was thinking in an evocative way of faraway places and perhaps the trade routes of olden days. So the Persians, giant blue flower-like pieces that can be several feet in diameter. And if you've seen some of Dale's installations using those forms, I mean, they can hang overhead as they do in the glass house at the Chihuly Garden and Glass in Seattle. They can form a wall installation, as you've seen in a lot of private commissions and other places. So they're quite, and they can hang in a giant tendril-like column, as they did in Kew Gardens just a couple of years ago. So it's really fun to see how beautifully that blue color, that really bold, rich blue color, translated into the rug.
It's a really interesting point, because looking at the gilded Fiore boat at the Baker Museum, I was struck by, wow, pretty amazing creativity around how you position the objects too. I mean, you're thinking in all different kinds of ways. It's not just your sculpture glass on a table, is it?
Right. Just all different ways to sort of play with the material, and I think that really is a hallmark of Dale's entire career, that he would start, we look back over time and we call them series, but I don't think he was necessarily thinking of them as a series at the time. It just happened that he would take an interest in a particular form, and then he'd push it as far as he could in scale or in color or using different molds. And over time, he would revisit them. And with each revisit, he'd start thinking of different ways to put them together. And as his career evolved around the private and public commission work, he started thinking about, of course, safety. How do I hang these overhead, such as we did at the Bellagio ceiling, which was really the first time we hung glass overhead. And it was quite a process figuring out how to do that. We also have the Persian ceilings, and those are great because there's safety glass under the glass and you can look up through that. But it's really fascinating to see how really the architectural and engineering work that's gone into being able to hang things overhead and such, and working with glass in that way.
And now we have the floor surface to be able to have objects represented.
Now we just worry about the red wine, James. Now that's what people are worried about.
Well, that's the beauty of buying quality rugs, because the high lanolin content in the rugs make it very easy to clean. But red wine can be, a white rug, red wine can be a little bit tricky. So
you don't sell that wine out with every rug. A lifetime supply.
Exactly. But it was, I mean, some of the other rugs that we did in the series, like Pheasant, I think the way that we were able to combine silk with the beautiful color palette, because we were very nervous, because I think Chihuly represents amazing color as well too, as well as shape. And so getting the exact colors that work in the exact way with the light reflecting, the feeling of light reflecting off of them, was a good challenge to our weavers. And I think Pheasant is a good example of how they were able to pull that off and show the shimmer and show the different movement in the pattern.
Yeah, and the process that we went through together, your team and ours and Dale, to make a final selection was difficult. We had so many wonderful images to work with. But I think in the collection, we wanted to give a really fantastic array in 4 pieces, right? Of both the abstract and very subtle colors and use of the imagery, and then the more bold, like the one behind you or Rosette. And how have people been responding to them? I'm always curious to know what your interactions are with people around the work.
It's been really phenomenal, and the response to both people that really know Chihuly and the work, but also new people as well too. So it's been great to introduce people that didn't know it as much and really share with them some of the, whether it's the books that we have from you, or seeing some of the videos that we made about how the glass is blown. It's been a really
Yeah.
interesting process to take our design community through. So they've been doing super well, and especially in Florida, the customer really does appreciate the rugs, and they work well in the Floridian homes, it seems too.
What are the places in Florida where people can go see them, or are they mostly seeing them online?
So our DCOTA showroom, the Design Center of the Americas in Dania Beach, has the full assortment there. And of
Hmm.
course, we stock a lot of different sizes, and we can do custom shapes as well too. So round
Yeah.
rugs are particularly popular, it seems, these days. So we can definitely do custom sizes as well too. But yeah, so in Florida, we have a beautiful new showroom in Dakota that the clients can visit.
That's great.
What were some of the challenges in translating, do you think, the images? We touched on a couple of them in terms of color, but in terms of what were your concerns, or what did you think was going to be
Yeah.
difficult to do?
Well, I think probably one of my biggest concerns, and perhaps Dale too, is we didn't want to trivialize the work itself. The rug is a very different kind of thing from the original artwork. So how do you do that in an elegant way, in a sophisticated way, so that you are both implying, hinting at, expressing the energy of the work itself, but acknowledging the fact that it's a rug. It's not a piece of fine art. It's a beautiful piece for your home, but it's not a fine art, object. So it's sort of going between those worlds. And, we're not as uptight around that as a lot of people are. You think about that whole conversation over all the decades about art and design and what's fine art and what's craft and all of that. And I think Dale is all of that. He's an architect, he's an interior designer, he's an artist, he's a fine artist, he's a glass blower, he's a craftsman. He's really all of that. And I think breaking all of that down and having discussions around it is really important, as many artists are beginning to work in so many materials. Lots of the students of Dale's that came out of RISD work in glass, but they work in photography, and they might work in fabric. And what we use to express an artistic vision really doesn't matter, so long as it's done really well. And I think, we're coming into, Dale will be 80 in September. He's been working since he was a teenager. So it's a long career, and it's fun to look back over all of the progression and evolution of his thinking and ideas. But Dale knew he was never going to be the best glassblower in the world. He studied with and watched and worked with really the greatest living masters from the island of Murano. But what Dale fundamentally does is he takes it to a new place. He has an idea about wanting to experiment with the material to see what it will do. And, the results of that have really yielded work that had really never been seen. It may be reminiscent of ancient Venice or the old, trade route, etc. But it's really a unique vision that he brought. And you can see, his Northwest upbringing. You can see the interest in this, his interest in ocean and sea and collecting beach glass. It's just I just love being able to look at the breadth of the career. And I think the Rug Company collaboration is really the best of what we could do with this material.
Well, we're
With you
delighted
guys,
to do this with you. So thank you for letting us have the opportunity to try to interpret in rugs the beautiful designs.
yes, well, I would love to, get links and such to the showroom. I can send that out to some friends and make sure they know what's going on. I have a lot of friends who either going and spending time in Florida or whose parents are there. So I'm happy to help out however I can.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All
It's
right.
been
It
a
was great.
pleasure. Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon.